Take lots of notes, and let's make sure that we participate and engage. And as always, want to make sure that we are taking massive action, and that action stands for accepting all possible losses before entering a trade, preparing you for any outcome, centering yourself, body, mind, and spirit, ensuring a balanced approach to trading, trusting your education, strategy, trade skills, and intuition. Imagine your trade successfully materializing, obeying your trading strategy, avoiding decisions based on greed or fear, and never looking back or stopping once your trade has commenced. All right. So let's get down to business. Um, Not a ton to catch up on from over the weekend, but definitely want to take a look at the fundamentals, and then dive into the charts to see how things have moved so far to start off the week. All right. So if everybody can hear me okay, drop me one in the chat. Beautiful. Appreciate it. All right. So let's slide over to trading economics. All right. So first things first, China. China exports beat estimate, but the imports slow sharply. Um, Exports from China increased by 8.7% year on year in August, the most since March 2023, to a 23-month peak, exceeding forecast of 6.5% and accelerating from a 7% rise in June. I'm sorry, in July. It's the fifth straight month of growth in shipments amid robust foreign sales despite a growing trade tension with the West. Um, mm, 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 mm. I won't go through the details of that. Yeah, so exports beat the numbers year on year. However, the imports rose by 0.5%, missing consensus of a 2% increase and sharply slowed from prior 7.2% um, jump due to fragile recovery in domestic demand. So this has been an ongoing scenario in China as things domestically continue to kind of deteriorate, right? And continue to pull back and push down. Um, and there's impacts in other areas from the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, and also in oil, right? You've seen Australian dollar really start to take a hit, and some of that could be due to what's happening in China in that slow recovery. Um, and then oil has also really pushed to the downside um, as China, one of the largest oil producers, oil consumers. So definitely something to watch there as things slow in China. And potentially there might even be some buying opportunities at some point um, when things level out and start to turn around. So something to keep our eyes on as things progress. One of the things that uh, I'm going to look into are potential stock opportunities in China. Something that I mentioned to Benny yesterday. Um, as things continue to deteriorate, are there some buying opportunities um, in some Chinese stock? So it's something that is definitely kind of the back of my mind as things continue to move forward. Um, Then we have U.S. small business optimism worsens. Um, it decreased from 91.2, lowest in 3 months, compared to 93 in July. So small business optimism, there are some concerns there. Um, mm, 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 mm. Historically high inflation remains the top issue for owners as sales expectations plummet and cost pressures increase. Uncertainty among small business owners continue to rise as expectations for future business conditions worsen. 24% of owners reported inflation as their single most important problem in operating their businesses, down 1 point from July. Net percent owners expecting higher retail sales volume fell 9 points. Um, so there's concern with small business owners, right? With inflation being high, people not spending as much money, and their prices happen to be higher because they have to pass that cost on to the consumer, right? So, and their just overall operating costs have increased because a lot of loans that were taken in 2021, 2022 are starting to come, even 2020 are starting to come due, right? And they're being renewed, and they're being renewed at higher rates, right? Business loans, they are on 3 and 5 year cycles um, of renewal, and even when it comes to the whole real estate piece, that is also that also plays a part in that overall operating cost. So understanding the cost for small businesses, this could definitely continue to be an issue um, as they renew some of their loans and leases on properties, because inflation still continues to remain high and interest rates are also still high. So definitely something to watch as well from a small business perspective. UK regular pay in the UK, which excludes bonuses, increased 5.1% year on year. Um, the least since June 2022, following a 5.4% rise in the previous period, and in line with market estimates. Wage growth eased both for private sector and the public one. Manufacturing sector saw the largest annual um, regular wage growth, followed by finance and business services. In contrast, construction sector saw the smallest annual regular growth, adjusted for inflation. So, um, kind of mixed bag there, some increasing and some not so much. But overall, overall there was growth there in average earnings. And that's really much it for the headlines there. Over to the calendar, we had uh, early this morning Claremont change. This is an unemployment change, and it's a lot lower than expected. Right, expectation was 95.5 thousand. Yeah, 95,000. It came in at 23,000. So the unemployment change was a lot better than expected. And here's that average earnings in just a bit below the expectation there. And the unemployment rate stayed the same. Um, mm, mm, mm. So later on today, got quite a few folks speaking. Um, Governor Macklem, Fed member Barr, Fed member Bowman, all speaking this morning, early afternoon. Um, mm, mm, mm. Then also tonight we have presidential debate here in the U.S. between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. So that could be something that we see some kind of jumps back and forth in the market. It'll be interesting to see what the actual impact is, but just be aware that that's happening this evening, and that could cause some volatility and fluctuations in the market. And then tomorrow we got GDP for the pound. But we have CPI for the dollar 8:30 tomorrow. Um, Gonna be interesting to see how the market moves there. Crude oil inventories at 10:30. Then on Thursday we got interest rate for the euro. Okay. Um, Expectation is that they cut rates further. So we'll watch and see how things go. It's been a back and forth conversation about how they continue to move forward and how large their interest rate cuts are. So this will be give us some volatility second half of the week. Then we got core PPI data for the dollar, and then your press conference for the euro. And you have in consumer sentiment, and then industrial production and retail sales for China, right? Not a busy week, but we got some things that could definitely move the market forward. So that's it from a fundamental perspective. Are there any questions? Or do you guys have anything that you've seen that you want to bring to the table?
Yeah, I got a question. So I was reading, I was doing some charting on TradingView, and I like to look at like the little snippets that they have. And it was one that said bond market warns Fed is to slow to cut rates. But what I'm questioning is it's saying that they said that the Federal Reserve is behind the curve with respects to rate cuts. What do that mean about them being behind the curve?
So you got a lot of investors that say they should have been cutting rates already. You
Okay.
got a lot of people, and kind of it was the same narrative on um, raising rates. The Fed was behind the curve on raising rates. They didn't raise rates fast enough, and now they're not raising rates slow enough. Because remember, before they were saying Fed Chair Powell was saying that inflation was transitory and it wasn't a major concern, so they weren't increasing rates. And then they started increasing rates rapidly. And everybody was saying, "Oh, he's late. He should have did it before. He should have did it sooner." It's the same narrative now. They're saying he should have been cutting rates, um, and the Fed's been saying we need to keep rates where they are, right? And we need to take our time and watch things. So that's what that means as far as they're behind the curve. Is other countries have been cutting rates and the Fed has not yet. Um, and so that then leads into the conversation which we're in now of how large are these rate cuts and are there jumbo rate cuts that come 50, 100 basis points um, to make up for the delay in cuts. And some of the backdrop of that is that small issues in small businesses, right? But you also have issues in commercial real estate. You have unemployment continuing to increase, and the concern behind unemployment being too high, right? So concerns in the labor market from that perspective. Um, and just the higher rates really impacting businesses negatively as opposed to being more of a softer landing. The concern now is do things get difficult from a production perspective, from an employment perspective. Um, and so that's why they're saying that he moved too late. So now we're going to potentially see this harder landing, and potentially have recession concerns because the Fed moved too slow.
And when following that, will we look at the 2 or the 10-year bonds?
So that's a question I have to ask Benny on.
Okay.
Um, he's the bond guru. I'm not as well versed on the bond side of things.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? And kind of just thinking about it off the top. Initially, I would lean towards the 2-year bonds, just from a shorter time frame perspective. This is just me thinking. I could be completely out base on this, but um, some of these changes would be more of a have more of a 2 to 3 year impact opposed to 10. But we'll see what Benny has to say regarding the bond situation. All right. No questions? Okay. Um mm, mm, mm. To the dollar. Uh DXY. This is where we sit. Dollar been pushing to the upside. All right. We're coming into level of resistance there. Right. We had almost a double bottom scenario here. We'll see it better on the 4, but price is moving to the upside. We got this swing low to form and we're moving along. And so now just the question is, as we move through the week, does data support the dollar continue to push to the, excuse me, to the upside? Okay, coming into this zone here that I've got my eyes on as a retest of previous support, right? Here. So do we break above that level or do we test that level and continue moving to the downside? So I'm watching that dollar retracement there to see how far we go. As we come down to the 4, we are in the midst of an 80-20 scenario where that 382 is right here at the top of this zone that I'm watching. All right, here's that double bottom there, and we're pushing long. Okay, so watching things here to see where the dollar goes and how far to the upside we get. Okay, if we're able to really start to get some traction, break above this zone for more of a long-term bullish scenario, right? But you got to see the data to support that. And then the rate cuts that coming, I believe, either next week or the week after. Um, how that impacts the dollar and the overall market, right? Because that could ultimately the statement could come in as concerning if there's talks around issues in the labor market and those concerns being heightened due to the current climate. So definitely things to continue to pay attention to as we get closer to those rate cuts, the size and the narrative around jobs and concerns about recession. So, um, but that's the DXY, right? Pushing out of this 118, 127 zone, could still have some more bullish opportunity to go. So we'll continue to monitor that and see how things transpire there. Okay. Over to the dollar yen, right? On the 1, I'll go back to the daily, but on the 1, we're pushing out of that 118, 127 zone. We broke the cloud, pulling back, retesting the cloud. Now we got a bullish Kumo twist ahead, right? So we could be in for continued motion to the upside on this dollar yen. Coming back to the daily, trying to see here if we get a swing low to form. All right, we've been moving down, but do we create a swing low here at this daily support? It's just stochastic moving back into the buy zone. Do we get this swing low to form to complete this double bottom at this daily support and see action to the upside like that? Okay. Um, so looking to see if we continue to get some bullish action on this dollar yen. Okay. Down to the 4. There's your fresh AB boundary, right? And that low forming on the lower time frame. And just do we get that continued move up? Okay. Kind of been range bound, bottom, top, bottom. Do we move back to the top? And then what happens when we get there? Okay. And then coming back to that 1 is where you have that 80-20 scenario, looking for that dollar yen to continue to push long. Questions on the dollar yen? No? Okay, 1 second. All right. All right. Cool deal. Look at this dollar CAD. Strong move to the upside. Yeah, on Friday. Strong push. Um, mm, mm, mm. So overall, let me pull this out and go down to 4. This is where we are on the daily, right? Been looking long, but we've been just range bound for quite some time. So as we zoom in on this, swing low formed, pushed, we're retesting this previous daily support that we broke, right? Retesting this previous daily support. Strong bearish action, pull back retest. So we got stochastic also in the sell zone. Do we get price to move back down to at least the support level? Right. So I'm watching this closely to see if we start to get price to turn over, give us a swing high. If we get today's candle to close below the high, right, that'll give us that swing high there. And then on the lower time frames, we'll look to see if we get at least a retracement, but maybe even a deeper move. Okay. So that's on the daily. We'll come down to the 4. And I know in Canada, right, things are sticky in Canada, right? And they just cut rates again. Um, so it fundamentally, right, depending on what happens with the dollar, right, we could see this level get broken and to continue to move to the upside, right? But it depends on what happens with the dollar rate statement, all of those things. Um, so here on the 4, right, fib running to the upside, we got a deep retracement here at that daily support and that push back to the upside. Okay, so this level is going to be critical. This 135, 878 going to be a critical level to see if we stay below this or if we move back to the upside. Okay. Um, yeah, and running the fib off the high here. So this is a sub fib in the move. We're sitting at a deep retracement level. Let's do this. I'll pull this out for a second. Sitting at a deep retracement level here. Okay. So do we stay inside this AB boundary and move back down? Okay. So it's another piece that I'm watching to see how things develop there on this dollar CAD. And then down to the 1. All right, you see that a little bit more clearly there. A beautiful 80-20 reversal to the upside. Now what happens as we push into this daily resistance level? Okay. Ran a fib off the low. You got a fresh AB boundary there. So not much doing there, but more looking to see if we get a move back down to the downside. Okay. So here on the 1, depending on this move and what happens over the next week, right? Either come back down to the daily support or do we break that level and continue pushing lower? Okay. So watching for that type of action there. Let me change this. And that's where we are on the cloud, right? So we did break above the cloud on the 1. So do we get range bound and the cloud start moving through price is kind of the question that I have as this continues to develop. Okay. So overall, looking for a move back down to the downside. questions on dollar CAD? No? Okay. We'll do. Another on my list is the Aussie NZD. We're continuing to watch this. We pressed deep into the zone here on the daily, right? Stochastic isn't quite back into the sell zone, but seeing if price holds up here. Previous support level, we pushed back above it. Okay. Looking to see how price responds here. Yeah, with what's happening in China, this could definitely be interesting. But do we get today and tomorrow to close bullish or above this low to give us a daily swing low? Right. And then do we see price continue moving to the upside? Okay. So I'm watching this one closely. Initially, I was in this on the lower time frame, but watching this from the daily time frame now to see if we get that swing low to form. Okay. So look more like this. And we'll see how things go. From a fundamental perspective here. Okay. So that's on the daily. Come down to the 4. All right. This is where we are. Got a nice push to the upside, and we're pulling back now. Okay. So if we're going to continue bullish, right, there's a AB boundary coming off the low. Okay. So do we get a pullback here, a deeper pullback, and then another move long? Okay. So watching this here on this Aussie New Zealand, as we come down to the 1, what does that look like with the fib coming off the low? Boom. All right, you see we got the cloud break and we pulled back and we're retesting the cloud now, right? Bullish ahead, lagging span above price. Okay, so watching this here again, right? Do we get potentially another push down, coming back down into this range here? And then do we get price to turn over and make its way back to the upside? Okay, so looking for the C to D move here on this Aussie New Zealand.
Ryan, is that next candle above it?
What you mean?
The candle that's moving now, is that above? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pushing up right now. Yeah,
But still
still
watch
above.
out for a dip down.
Say it again.
I said, but still watch out for a dip down because
Yeah, I'm looking to see if we push on this 1 hour into the 618 retracement level.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's just for more for me and my risk management purposes. Um because it could just bounce off the cloud, continue moving north. Um, but that's what I'm looking for. Okay. Any other
No, if I said
questions?
that before, this be the tricky part
Yeah,
when it be
yeah.
the cloud and stuff like this.
Yep, and we got a 50% retracement, right? So it's close to the zone, but what happens, right? Um, so no, I definitely feel you on when to pull the trigger on that. Um, and it also makes this particular one interesting because we don't have that swing low yet on the daily, right? And the stochastic is kind of in the middle. right? And so that's also giving me telling me to pause just a little bit to see if we get another move to the downside, get us back into that buy zone, right? To give us an opportunity to buy this to the upside. So kind of using that stochastic on the daily as a gauge as well. All right. Aussie dollar. So it's been on the so let's go back to the daily, right? Overall on the daily, right? This is our overall move. We got stochastic coming back into the buy zone here, right? We talked about the dollar and seeing what happens as it gets higher. But we had this nice move to the downside. This is my capital fib on the daily time frame. Okay. Um, so tons of questions around the dollar, what happens. But we're range bound right now, right? Price is moving straight across the middle of the screen. Um, but do we see right price come back to the high and then move back down, right? So we'll see how things transpire here. But stochastic in the buy zone, looking to push a little bit to the upside here. Coming to the four, right? Here's our 80-20 scenario. We just missed that 382, right? So do we get a pullback and then another move to the downside here? Okay. Ultimately, what I'm looking for, this sub fib getting to the D extension, right? But do we get the action like this? And a continuation down. Okay, so those that are playing this 80-20 to the downside, I'm looking for a pullback and a continuation down, at least in the short term. Okay. This one is also interesting because we got, excuse me, we have the interest rate conversation with the dollar, but you also have things happening in China um, that's causing some concerns in Australia, right? So that could be the catalyst for a continued move to the downside on this Aussie. Okay. Um, so watching that there and then down on the one, right? There's your 80-20. Been a good move to the downside so far, but do we get a further push? Right. And that'll give us something that looks like this. Sub fib C to D move. Okay. So watching to see if that develops there on the Aussie dollar. All right. Been a beautiful 80-20 to the downside so far, though. Any questions here? No. Okay. Give me 1 second, everybody. All right. So that's the Aussie dollar, Aussie yen. We had some kind of slower data come out of Japan, um, or mixed data, if you will. The GDP data coming out of Japan was a bit below expectation, right? They were expecting a 3.1% and it was at 2.9. So a little bit slower than expectation, but they are still expecting interest rates to increase, right? The BOJ to increase rates later this month. So watching this yen and seeing how it evolves over the next week. Okay. Um, on this Aussie yen, this has been the move. Okay, so we got deep retracement 786 level, we got a stochastic in the buy zone. Okay, if we run a sub fib off of this low, you see that retracement there. Okay, so my question is, do we get at some point another push to the upside? All right, I know I've been sitting watching this, waiting for this development. Whether we get it or not, we'll see. Right, with the BOJ still looking to increase rates and looking to do it this month. But we'll see what the narrative is around it and see kind of how things go. And if we move back into more of a risk on environment with the Fed cutting rates soon also. Um, so watching to see how this one develops. Um, but we could see another move to the upside. Maybe we don't break that level, but maybe we come back to the top here at 99,874. Okay. Um, coming down to the four, beautiful 80/20 to the downside. Boom. Right. Do we see another push up? Okay. Um, or push down to a 78686 range and then a move to the upside. So watching to see how this all develops here as we get deeper in the zone here on this fib to the upside, right? Do we get another move up before we get the continuation down, right? So it's been interesting watching this yen and how it's moved. Um, but momentum is building uh on the yen. So keeping that in mind also. So just watching from that perspective there. And then down here on the one, right? We got the reversal here, but we could see that move back down as we're retesting the cloud. So um maybe something like that. And then we get a retracement and then a high price to get back short. Okay. So nothing doing there, but just monitoring the yens as they're evolving on these moves down as overall we've expected. Okay. Questions on the Aussie yen? Oh, okay. What was the other one? Let me take a look at oil. Uh, Aussie CAD. So this Aussie CAD is in an interesting space. All right, we got our swing high to form, been moving down, beautiful play, came into this level of daily support. All right, we got our crown pattern mapped out there. We'll see if we're able to break the support level at some point. We continue moving down, but we got a stochastic in the buy zone right now. Okay, stochastic in the buy zone, price pushing to the upside. Okay, this is just a smaller wave coming off of this low. Um, remove that. There we go. So, are we able to break this low after this pullback, right? Or do we move back topside and stay within this range here between 92 and 90? That's my question. You see cloud pressing sideways here, right? So level of support that we've moved into. So Been a nice move to the downside, but if you're playing this, now watch for that move back long. Okay. Coming down to the 4. There's your capital fib. There's your crown. We'll take that out. Um, and just really watching this form here. Okay. And where price takes us. Okay. With that swing low forming on the 4. So it might be time to take some of that trade off the table, right? Here we come down to the 1. Beautiful move to the downside, deep retracement. Do we get a cloud break and a continuation to the upside? Okay, so looking for a potential C to D move here on the 1 hour, moving us back to around that $92 range on this Aussie CAD. Okay, so protect some of your profit on this move to the downside if you have not. And then we'll look to see if we get a high price and a continuation to the downside. Okay. Questions on Aussie CAD?
Nope.
Deal.
My minute I was about to say this on the last chart. I'ma still remain with my conspiracy theories. They look at the chart and they make up something drastic and said this is when we'll release this news.
Oh, Joy, listen. That that's always the question, all right? What comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? But it is definitely interesting that we get these scenarios at these key levels,
Right.
right? It's definitely interesting.
If I was
It's
a fly on
definitely
the wall.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. For sure, I'm with you. I'm with you. That's one of the things Benny and I've always talked about is um as we continue to grow, get to the point where we pay somebody to do that research, right? And looking at these C to D moves, the deep retracements in the 80/20s, um, in line with fundamental data and when it comes out and see how price moved at those points. It it's an interesting thought. It really is. It really is. So, yeah, yeah. Uh, everybody, give me 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back. I'm back. Kid slept through her alarm clock. So that's that. I'm gonna take a look at this zero NZD. So this pair has intrigued me for quite some time. Um, been moving long, right? We have rate statement coming on the euro later this week. Potentially even rate statements coming out, rate cuts coming out of New Zealand as well in the future. But um, I'm curious on this pair, right? from a weekly time frame, I've been watching this potential crown development here. We got that swing high to form, press down. Got a nice pullback here. But where do we go from here? Right? Um, and I know Benny's been long on this pair for quite some time. We got stochastic in the sell zone on the daily, right? We get some consolidation happening here. Do we get another move to the downside, right? And this could, right? We could see movement with the rate statement later this week. Um, but that's my question. And so here on the 4, 50% retracement. We're starting to turn over and try to press down. Okay. Um, do we get a continued move to the downside here? Right. We did have strong bullish action to close on Friday. Right. But where do we truly go? Okay, where do we truly go here? So I'm watching this one, and maybe we get another move to the upside before we move down, but watching to see how this develops to see ultimately if we do continue moving to the downside, right? And filling out this crown pattern over time. Okay, so that's on the 4. Um, Down on the 1, a nice 80-20 to the upside here. Okay, so definitely could be in for some more upside movement. Um, as this 80-20 plays out, but do we get a high price to ultimately then get short? All right. Do we get this and then a continuation down? All right, that rate statement is on Thursday. So do we move back to the upside before that move down, or do we make our way down now? Okay, so watching this one as it develops, I missed this 80-20 here, but looking to see what happens if we're able to get deeper in the zone. And is it a high price for us to get short? Okay. So that those are my thoughts on this Euro NZD. It's an interesting scenario. Interesting scenario. Um, but Benny, good morning, bro.
Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, everybody. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well, man. Glad to be here. How about yourself?
Oh man, I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Sorry for being so late, man. Crazy busy morning.
Oh man, it's all good, bro. You already know what it is. How you feeling,
Sure.
man?
Oh man, I'm doing a lot better. You know, you can't keep a good man down, Ryan.
Facts.
Bounce out. So, but no, I'm doing way better than I was. Right, little shaky yesterday, but woke up this morning feeling a lot better. So,
Good, good. Glad to hear it, man.
yeah, appreciate it.
Fundamentally, anything top of mind for you, bro?
I mean, not really. I mean, we saw front page of Trading Economics, right? What's going on over in China. We were just mentioning that yesterday. Like, hey, you know, they've got some downward movement in their growth projections, but it's not like, is super major. You can see they're still doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
They beat expectations. The import growth slow, but that's good. That's good for their trade balance overall. But again, like I said, like yeah, they may be reforecasting China's growth rate, but the growth has been so phenomenal, over the last decade or even longer that it's like, okay, well, you know, maybe they still come in at 4% instead of 5. So that one caught my eye, this morning. And then finally we saw the UK regular pay growth slowed.
Yeah,
It was expected to slow and it actually slowed. But I still don't think they're going maybe November they come through with rate cuts, from the UK, another rate cut. I don't think it's gonna be anything in September or anything like that. So
yeah,
I think they're going to continue to hold.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm in agreement with that. I'm in
yeah,
agreement with that.
yeah, for sure. And then also I was reading about some things. So we know we're expecting an ECB rate cut
Yep.
uh coming up, but it's important to also remember that they've got three areas, right? They got the main refinancing rate, the deposit rate, and the marginal lending rate. And right now they're all out of alignment,
Mm,
and there was talks about them bringing that back into alignment. So I'm thinking maybe that happens this upcoming meeting. So with some of those rates, you may see like a 60 basis point cut because they're out of alignment. You know what I mean? Um, so just something to keep an eye on. Don't be surprised if you see like a larger number with one of the rates because they're trying to bring them back into alignment. So we'll see how that plays out and how that impacts everything. I don't know, I'm not
okay.
historically, I'm not too familiar like how that if that'll do anything beyond what's already expected with those being that you may see a larger cut with some of those other rates, but just be aware of that.
Okay.
Um
That's what I was gonna ask. What does that look like as they do that? But we'll
yeah, as
see.
far as the right sector. So we'll definitely see, so just that's it. That's all.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. Cool, man. Appreciate that. Any pairs top of mind you got your eyes on?
I'm watching that Aussie cat, that 80-20 on the 1 hour.
Yeah.
Right. So you probably covered that at the beginning. So just watching that one because that one's it was on a subfit that I had running to the downside. So it seemed like it's hanging within that AB boundary on that upfit on the one
Hmm.
and trying to make that U-turn. So we'll see how that continues to play out because I'm still actually bullish on that cross. But
Still
we
bullish
haven't.
overall.
Yeah, over the long term, we had talked about that over the weekend a bit because that daily stochastic is back in the buy zone,
Yeah.
and I'm just not sold on the CAD. We saw the markets yesterday try to recover a little bit. Uh, yesterday, stock markets tried to bounce back somewhat from the recent decline.
Yeah.
So maybe we continue to see that rally from here. I'm not sure, but it's definitely that right there. That 80-20 is definitely working its way to the upside. At least to that first target.
Yeah.
When you look at the risk gauges this morning, daily, it's a little bit mixed, but it's starting to move back. In that risk on direction. So we'll see if it can maintain itself. I know we got a lot of jitters today, right? Because the debate that's going on tonight. So that
Yeah.
traders pay close attention to that as we head towards November is the first debate, so we'll see.
We
Yep.
shall see. That's for sure.
Yeah. I saw also this morning. Um, I don't know if you saw that on Bloomberg with Morgan Stanley seeing the euro slide 7% on
No, I missed
the
that.
risk of the big ECB cuts. Yeah, that can't. It was like for like 5 hours ago. I seen that, but that's what that's they it says sees euro sliding 7% on risk of big ECB cut. So
Ah, okay.
see how it plays out. So yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. All right. That should be interesting.
yeah. That's it though.
All right. Cool deal. Appreciate you, bro.
Yep, no doubt.
Um, mm, mm, mm. Then I want to take a look at this oil as we get to the end of the session. 1 hour, we got this 80-20 prices lingering there. Um, it'll be interesting to see what the oil inventories come out as. But do we get a retracement back to a high price and then see if we continue down? Um, Overall on the daily, this is what price looks like, right? Also, and I actually didn't look at this chart this morning, but this support level, right? Do we get the swing low to form here? We got stochastic in the buy zone, but is this the bottom of the range, and do we make our way back to the top of the range or somewhere between 72 and 80, right? And get back to retest the cloud. So looking at it from this perspective, zoomed out, do we see a larger move to the upside? We'll see, right? We'll see overall. This could be interesting, right? And then the other question is, do we break the support level and make our way to the matching extension at $58? that could also be interesting, right? So watching oil here from a daily time frame perspective, do we get that swing low to form with a close above the low today? We come down to the 4. Zoom back. Oops. It might have actually been closer. One of these highs. Boom, there we go. 80-20 on the 4 as well, right? Got stochastic in the sell zone, so we might see another push down to really press into this daily support level. But do we see continued consolidation here and then that reversal to the upside here? So 80-20 on oil on the 4, and as we drop down to the 1 hour, right, 80-20 on the 1 as well. Okay, so do we get a true double bottom here at the 67, what's that, 67.09? And then do we see price turn over and push back to the upside, right? Things still happen in the Middle East. They haven't really changed. There have been more strikes over the weekend, all of that that's happening there. But how do we see things develop overall from we got the issues in China, right? So just from a consumption perspective, do we see more of an optimistic view as OPEC plus still deliberating on the potential of delaying the production increases? So do we have that kind of narrative that gives us a bump in oil price and get us back to a high price? So watching that from that perspective, but 80-20 on oil on the 4 hour and on the 1 hour. So potential opportunity here on a move to the upside. Okay. Questions on oil? Oh,
Nope.
right. So Benny, Joy had a question regarding 2-year and 10-year bonds. Seeing as the narrative is the Fed is behind the curve on cutting rates. And the potential impact of the bond market. What do the rate cuts, how do the rate cuts impact the bond market, and what bonds should we be looking at, 2-year or 10-year, or both?
You always want to pay attention to both, but if they're cutting rates right now and track to continue to cut rates, right, that doesn't necessarily bode well for the bond market, right? Because that's how the yield is set, right? So for a long time, right, when they were cutting rates, right, the bond market wasn't too high, right, because the yield wasn't as high, right, to invest. Like, what kind of return were you getting? So think about it. When we went through these accelerated rate hikes, right, we saw the bond yields go through the roof, right? They were high because why?
Right.
Because I could park my
4.5,
money
5%.
right at 5%. If I can park my money into bonds, which that's because you got the full weight, and trust of the U.S. government behind it, right behind the bond. So we always right think to do what first? Preserve capital. So if I could park my money to get a 5% return, I'm gonna I'll pull some cash out of the stock market, which is considered far more riskier, right, than the bond market, and park it and get 5% for letting it sit there, per year, lock that in for 10 years, right? Then and then get the principal and like that payout at the end. Like, I'm gonna park some capital there, but it becomes less attractive, right, when you're in the rate cutting environment,
Got it.
in a rate cutting environment. So that's what you have to pay attention to is the fluctuation in that yield as a result of the rate cut projections coming from the Fed. That's why I'm interested to see, I'm leaning towards they're going to do 25 basis points, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. So, Joy, keep an eye on both 2-year and 10-year, but potential for those to come down. All right. Any questions on anything that we covered this morning? Nope. Been any other final thoughts before we wrap it up, bro?
No, man, that's it. That's all
right.
I've got.
All right, good people. Have a phenomenal Tuesday. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for this pre-New York session. Have a phenomenal day. Peace.